Hey yo, welcome back to episode number 2 of the Next Man Up Sports Podcast. Before we get into it, I want to send a sincere thank you to everybody who supported our first episode. If you haven't seen it, please go check it out. You want to say anything before we get going?
Same thing. I really want to say thank you to everybody that's already given us amazing feedback, amazing support, that has checked out, whether it's a video on YouTube, Spotify, anywhere that they get their podcasts. The feedback that we've been getting, the response we've been getting is already amazing. I know it's early, but I really appreciate y'all. Y'all are the reason that we wanted to do this, why we wanted to bring this content to you.
And so I'm selfish. I wanted to do it for me.
Oh, you want to do it for him? I mean, I can't blame him too much, but again, I'm so thankful already for everybody that showed support, that shows that they're going to be interested in this, and we hope that we, as my partner said, that we can continue to bring the content that you guys like. Again, we're saying at the beginning, please like, subscribe, smash any of those buttons. If you want to hit us up for comments or content that you want us to do on future episodes, please let us know. We look at those. We want to bring you guys the content that you want to bring, or that you guys want to hear, and we're so thankful for you guys already showing us support. And let's get into the next episode, man.
Absolutely.
Thank you again for everybody showing up. Let's keep doing it.
It is an honor.
Absolutely.
All right, episode 1, we covered the power rankings 1 through 32 going into the season. This episode, we want to have a little bit of fun. We want to list our top 10 teams of all time, single season teams. So not total franchises, just best single season teams of all time. Gonna be interesting.
We're talking about the NFL for anybody that's not keeping up.
Absolutely,
we're talking about the NFL. So if you want to like add us about like something about the Yankees, you're not paying attention to what we're talking about. We're talking about the NFL right now. We will get into those other things when it's season appropriate, but right now we're talking about the NFL.
I feel like the Yankees should get a Super Bowl ring. They have so many World Series championships.
Yeah,
just give them a ring.
Just give them. I mean,
honorary
what else,
Super Bowl champion.
What else don't they have? I mean, they got everything. So just give them some more.
But all right, we got top 10. So you want to kick it off? Or you want me to kick it off?
I definitely want to kick it off with you. I want to hear what your number 10 pick is, because I feel like it's already going to be interesting. Again, for the people back home, just like with the first episode, we intentionally don't look at each other's lists before these because we want our reactions to be genuine and organic. So like we know the topic that we're talking about. We have no idea where we're going to be on it. So for me, I definitely want to hear your top 10. Before you get into that, I want to mention my honorable mentions.
Okay.
Because I do have a couple of teams that I don't believe will make it into either one of our top 10s, but they're great, historical NFL teams,
right,
that deserve some kind of a nod.
Okay.
I'm going to keep it simple in that both of these teams are from the same season, the 2013 season. I'm going to go with the Denver Broncos and the Seattle Seahawks. Yeah. Both of the 2013 teams, because both of those teams were masterclasses in what they did that season. The Broncos, the 2013 Broncos with Peyton Manning, set numerous NFL records. Of the only team in NFL history to have 4 different wide receivers all get at least 10 touchdown passes in a single season. Peyton Manning set the single season quarterback passing record along with the touchdown record. We put up 606 points, which is a 37.9 per game average over a 16-game span. Arguably one of the greatest offenses that the NFL has ever seen. And on the other side of it, you had the Seahawks, arguably one of the top 3 defenses of all time. They were limiting their opponents to 14.4 points per game. They were just beasts. I mean, just up and down the board. We can go into the Seahawks. They were beasts. The Legion of Boom, exactly. So both of those teams, and again, one of them won the Super Bowl, the other one didn't, but they met in the Super Bowl game. And again, these are 2 teams that I couldn't put either one of them in my top 10 as far as like an all-time great team, but these are 2 fantastic teams. And this is not biased because I'm a Broncos fan. This is just objective. I'm serious. Just objectively, is one of the 2013 Broncos team is like arguably the greatest offensive team in history. Go ahead. Yeah. all day I'm repping my Broncos, but this is what no bias is, that offensive team was a beast. That defensive team from the Seahawks was a beast, but neither one for me made it into my top 10. So that's why I had to give a quick honorable mention shout out to both of those teams, because the respect is due to both of those teams and what they accomplished. You can shit on the Broncos because they lost in the Super Bowl, but it's like, still look at what they did, their body of work.
Yeah.
You know, just because you didn't win the big game doesn't mean you weren't a fantastic team.
Right.
So let's get into the top 10, and I want to hear yours first. We heard my honorable mentions. I gotta hear your number 10 because I'm without knowing your list, but just knowing how we tend to view things differently. I'm very curious to hear who you have as number 10. I'm hoping that we're somewhere in the same ballpark.
All right, before I say 10, though, I'll give an honorable mention.
Okay, you have one?
And this is completely biased. The 1964 Cleveland Browns.
Okay.
Last Cleveland Browns team, or actually not the last one to win the championship, but super solid team. Actually beat the Baltimore Colts in the championship game, 27-0.
Yeah, the Baltimore Colts.
People
sleep on the Colts, on that old school Colts team.
Johnny U. But we handled our business. We stomped them out real quick. Mm-hmm. But Jim Brown, can't say enough about Jim Brown. One of, to me, the greatest back in history. No bias, some bias.
Hey, so dead ass to people listening out there right now. I'm saying this to you. Like, obviously, I'm not a young guy, but I'm a bit of a younger guy. I'm in my 30s.
I was around in 1964.
Right. It fucking feels like it. It's your old ass. No, because of how, I like that you had them as your honorable mention, because I remember that Browns team. I remember how dominant Jim Brown was. So much so to the point when I got into understanding football when I was like 7 years old. So mind you, I'm a kid and I didn't really know a lot about it. I came from an immigrant family where we knew about football, like soccer football.
Right.
But I got into American football. And it's been, I've never looked back since, but I thought that the Cleveland Browns were named after Jim Brown because of how dominant of a running back that he was. That literally for like the first probably 5 years I followed football, from like 7 to 12, I literally thought that the Cleveland Browns were named after Jim Brown.
It could be. I mean, it wouldn't be a bad idea.
Because he was that dominant. Where you're bringing that up, it's like I can't even argue against it. I mean, the dude was next level. And then he went on to have a successful acting career because, I mean, fucking why not? I'll never get over the scene of him punching Martians in the face, man, in Mars Attacks. Like that to me is like probably one of the greatest Jim Brown moments ever.
All right, so let me get into it. Number 10 on my list, and actually I couldn't lock it in. I have a tie.
Come on.
At number 10.
Come on.
I can't help it.
That's not what we agreed to. The rule was 10 teams.
It's 10 teams.
Not 11.
Just
ish.
tied at the spot.
Okay.
The 2000 Baltimore Ravens.
I feel like that's a cop-out. I got to comment on it before you get it. I feel like it's a cop-out. I'm calling my co-host out. It's a cop-out. Make a decision. You got to have 10.
Make between the teams. They are literally identical. The 2000 Baltimore Ravens and 85 Bears.
Oh, my God. Wait. Those are your two teams?
Yeah.
That are tied for 10th.
Tied for 10th.
The 2000 Baltimore Ravens.
Yes.
And the Monsters of the Midway, 1985. Who else do you have on your list?
We'll get into that.
How are you going to put them as a tie for 10th? These are two of the greatest defenses in literally the history of life.
Yeah, and that's why the teams have made the top 10 list of all time.
It's just so low. It's so disrespectful. We gotta get it.
But you know about the Ravens led by Ray Lewis, arguably to me, second best defense of all time.
Okay. The 2000 Ravens are the second best defense.
Second best defense of all time to me.
Okay. I don't see how, but okay. I'll take second best. That's not disrespectful. I can take second
defense of all time.
I still feel like it's insulting because I feel like the 2000 Ravens were the greatest defense.
A lot of people do.
But
to me, they're the second best. But yeah, they didn't have much. I mean, you had Trent Dilfer at QB on offense, of course, because Tony Banks, the original starter, was just playing terrible. So go to Trent Dilfer. Trent, just don't mess up.
Yeah.
Give us, like Ray Lewis literally told the guy, give us 10 points and we'll win the game.
Yeah.
And he did it. Him and Shannon Sharp.
Shout out to Shannon Sharp. Shout out to Shannon Sharp going from back-to-back championships with the Denver Broncos, then taking a year off and going to the Ravens and getting another championship. Yeah. Shout out to Shannon Sharp.
Absolutely. But
second greatest tight end of all time.
The offense was basically Shannon Sharp and Jamal Lewis.
Yeah.
Like that was literally
Jamal
the
Lewis
offense.
played out of his mind.
Absolutely. Savage.
He came, what was it, like 50 yards short of the Eric Dickerson record?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, he was like 50 yards short of the Eric Dickerson record. It is not as egregious to me, and I'm not digressing, but it's not as egregious to me as the bullshit that happened with Adrian Peterson when he was eight yards from the record with like 10 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, and the Minnesota Vikings did literally only pass plays for the rest of the game because they were trying to make the playoffs, which they didn't. And Adrian Peterson ended up 8 yards short of the record.
Hey, he put himself before the team.
But what's annoying is the way that he was playing that game. He got to within 8 yards on only 15 carries.
Yeah, he would have got the record for sure.
Like, just give him the ball a couple of times. He needed 8 yards. Anyway,
but I got him tied with the Bears, man. Monsters of Midway.
How do you
Super Bowl shuffle?
How do you have them tied with the Bears? Like, that's again with the 85.
Man, teams just mirrored each other. Like, you could flip flop Trent Dilfer and Jim McMahon. Jim McMahon had way more personality than Trent.
Oh my
Dilfer.
God, he was
but as a player, can't say he was better.
Was like the original Playboy quarterback, even before Joe Namath. Like, I know Joe Namath was like, the Broadway Joe, but it was like, Joe McMahon was like that dude. He was in advertisements and commercials.
He was cooler.
Yeah, he was that guy. So again, I'm like, yo, the 1985 Chicago Bears. I mean, you looking at. Because I have them way higher on my list. Yeah. I'm like, you got Mike Dicker, you got Walter Payton, you got the Fridge Perry,
Willie Gault.
Like, dude, even their playoff run, like as I'm looking at it, because I had to take these notes because the 85 Bears are so nasty.
Yeah, they obliterated people.
They destroyed the playoffs. Mind you, listen to this playoff run for everybody back at home. Like, listen to the 1985 Bears, and my man somehow has it 10. Their playoff run. Along with their amazing regular season, they won their first game against the star-studded Giants, who had a stacked team. They were the Super Bowl favorites that year. They beat them 21-0.
Yeah.
Then they beat the Rams, who had Eric Dickerson in one of his many record-setting seasons. They beat the Rams 24-0.
Yeah.
Then in the Super Bowl against the Patriots, who finished that season 14-2. They beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl 46-10. Dude,
the terrible thing about that game.
You're telling me that you have the 1985 Chicago Bears, who gave up a combined 10 points in 3 playoff games, as your number 10 team.
Yes.
Oh my God, who had a more dominant season? I mean, I have teams, obviously we both have teams that have more dominant seasons than that, but like for them to be at like 10?
It's about balance.
Holy.
There are teams that could have beat these teams.
It's like, I feel like at this point.
In my opinion.
I feel like at this point in the podcast already, like in this particular episode, I don't even care about my list right now. I want to hear his because I'm so fascinated as to how it is you could have the 2000 Ravens and the 1985 Bears tied for 10.
Yeah.
Who else is on your list?
We'll get to that, but let's get to your number 10.
Oh, so my number 10, I feel, and I'm gonna say this self-promoting wise. I had to start my number 10 with a team that I don't believe is like a greatest of all time, so to speak. But it's like you have to kiss the ring, so to speak. Like, you have to pay respect where respect is due. So my number 10 team is the 1962 Packers.
Yeah.
I mean, the trophy, the literal Super Bowl trophy is named the Vince Lombardi Trophy. So you have to talk about the team that created that image, that dynamic. Like, the fact that it's called the Lombardi Trophy, you have to go to the 1962 Packers, which in their era, I know there was only 14 teams, but they were obnoxiously dominant. Obnoxiously dominant. Again, they outscored their opponents over the course of the season 415-128. That's like obnoxious. On top of the fact that if you go into the playoffs, they beat the Eagles. The only team that ever beat Vince Lombardi in the playoffs was the Eagles. When they played them 2 years later, they beat them in 1960. When they played them in 1962 with this Packers team I have as my number 10, Vince Lombardi took that shit personal. To where he decided to play when they played the Eagles, it it wasn't just that they beat them.
Right.
Vince Lombardi wanted to make a point, which is, again, why the trophy's named after him. They beat the Eagles, the only team to ever beat Vince Lombardi in the playoffs. The next time that they played, they beat them 49-0 and out-yarded them 628-54. And mind you, this is 1962. We don't have Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady or Peyton Manning or Drew Brees throwing for 400 yards. This is where we running the ball.
This is matriculating the ball up the field.
And they put up 628 yards and only gave up 54. If you put either of those metrics in any game in the common NFL right now, you'd be like, are you out of your mind? If you see a team put up 628 yards, you'd be like, Jesus. If you see a team hold another team to 54 total yards, you'd be like, were they playing a college team? No, they were playing the Eagles, who at that time in the 60s were the second best team in the NFL. So it wasn't like they were just smacking somebody that was garbage. They were smacking, like, literally their number one rival that badly.
Right. So
I have to give my number 10 to the 1962 Packers just to pay homage, to pay respect to the fact that this is what we call the Super Bowl is called the Lombardi Trophy. Okay. And it was because of that team. So that's my number 10 as like a tip of the cap to the originators.
That's fair. I mean, I can't really hate on that.
But I couldn't put them higher than 10, but I had to put them at 10 because I had to give the respect. They have to be in the top 10, but I won't put them higher because I don't think they were a great team. But it's I think that they were a great team for their era. Let me correct myself. They were a great team for their era, but as far as like the greatest of all time, no, I have to have them at 10 because there's plenty of teams that would smack them in one-on-one. But it's like they were the originators. Why we call it the Lombardi Trophy is because of the 1962 Packers.
Okay, fair. Moving on. You ready for number 9?
Shit, I'm ready to hear your number 9. I'm ready to hear your entire list. Like, at this point, I'm waited on bated breath trying to figure out where you have the rest of your list. Because if you have, the 2000 Ravens and the 1985 Bears at 10, I am thoroughly interested in where the rest of your list is. Far more than my own.
Number 9, I got the 1975 Pittsburgh Steelers.
Okay.
Shout out to the Steel Curtain, Steeler Nation. Even though that pains me as a Browns fan, but they dumb. You could pick one of 4 Steelers teams from the 70s.
Exactly.
I chose 75. I just thought it was their best year. They only gave up 11 points a game, which is ridiculous.
I won't say whether they're on my list yet, but with you, I agree in that I have one of the 70s Steelers teams on my list. It's not 75, but I have the 78 team, but in a different spot. So yeah, it was agreeing with you. Like you just pick that era.
Yeah,
it was the Steel Curtain was 6 years. Beast. Yeah. Like, just pick a year.
Franco Harris, Terry Bradshaw, Lynn Swann.
Yeah.
Lambert, Mean Joe. They went 12-2 that season. That's literally pick any one of the 4 teams. They won 4 Super Bowls in 6 years. So, but I went with 75. I just thought that was their best, their most complete year.
You felt like that was like their coming out party, maybe?
No, they actually won the year before that.
Oh. All right.
But I just think it was their most complete year.
Okay. We're not far off on that. And I have the 78 Steelers on my list. I liked the 78 Steelers more than 75. Personally, only because I think my difference with you on 75 versus 78 is Mel Blount. And that Mel Blount in that 78 season, how dominant they were, created. Anytime that you have a player, I don't know if this is a positive or a negative, but it's impactful. That you have a player who has to, because of their play style, the governing body of that sport creates a new rule. You've done something. Mel Blount was a beast of a DB.
Yeah, he was.
And the whole reason that we have the new rule, the 5-yard contact, that you cannot contact a wide receiver after the first 5 yards, you can't jam them, was because Mel Blount of the 1978 Pittsburgh Steelers Steel Curtain was going to ride I'm trying not to cuss. He was going to ride you all the way down the field. You weren't going to breathe. And it's where the NFL, and seeing how much he just shut out whole wide receiver, whole sides of the field. Yeah. Because he going to be jamming you open. You ain't ever going to get open.
He's one of those original shutdown guys.
You ain't ever going to get open on Mel Blount. Yeah. It's where they had to create a rule to try to make it like to even the game. That's why I picked the 90. I picked the 78 Steelers. I have them a bit higher. I'm not going to tell you where I have my Steelers at yet. That's still curtain. But you have them at, you said 8?
I got them at 9.
At 9. So for 9, for me, I have the 2004 New England Patriots. It's the first time that it'll show up on my list. The Patriots organization does show up twice on my list.
Okay.
This is the first iteration of them. I have them down at 8. Or down at 9, it's the 2004 Patriots, because that, for me, was the team that solidified that the Patriots were a dynasty. It solidified Tom Brady's claim to the throne. It solidified what he was doing. It solidified Bill Belichick, because again, he bounced around, whether it was from the Jets to the Browns, etc. Like he hadn't really, even with 2 previous championships, we were like, the jury was still out on Bill Belichick. The jury was still out on the Patriots. The jury was still out on Tom Brady. I feel like the 2004 team, which is the last team to go back-to-back champions. Since then, it hasn't happened. 17 years, it hasn't happened. Yeah. And they're one of only 5 teams in NFL history to ever go back-to-back, with the Cowboys, the Broncos, the Steelers, and the Niners. So it's like that. The 2004 team, to me, is my number 9, because they solidified the Patriots dynasty. Okay. It was their 3rd championship in 4 years. It was a back-to-back. It's not the most impressive team to me on paper, but they were dominant.
Right.
Like, especially coming off of a Super Bowl win, to come in the next season, still go 12-4, and then they dominated in the playoffs. I think they had an average margin of victory over 15 points, where it was like they coasted to a back-to-back championship. Like, even the 2000 happened in 2005, like that Super Bowl wasn't even close. To where it was like, that to me has to be the number 9 team on my list, only because they solidified what came to be known as the Patriots dynasty. And there's no denying the Patriots dynasty. And that was the team that, like, put the rubber stamp, in my opinion, on it. Like, yo, we're fucking real. Like, we're not playing around. This is a real team. This isn't a fluke.
That's a great segue. I'll say that's a great segue, because actually 8th on my list, I have the 2003 New England Patriots.
Okay. So why 03 instead of 04?
I think that team's a better team. I think that's the best team in Patriots history.
It was the 03 team.
The 03 team. It was
not the 04, not the 07, but the 03.
The 03 team.
Wow. It's a bold statement.
Yeah, Tom Brady had the best running game of his career. Mm-hmm. Even to this day, even when we go on Tampa, Corey Dillon is better than any running back he's ever played with.
No, there's no denying that.
Yeah, and they experienced losing. They won the Super Bowl 2 years before, got the big head, got beat, and then Bill Belichick had to figure out how to we know how to win. How do we get back to winning? Yeah. Goes out, signs Corey Dillon, solidifies the run game, stacks up the defense. You got Bruce E. McGinnis and those boys.
Rodney Harrison.
Absolutely. And they handled business. They went 14-2, just breezed through the regular season.
Yeah, they were breezed.
Only gave up 14 points per game. And again, I just think it's the most balanced Patriots team in the franchise's history.
So you have them. You have the 03 Patriots at 8.
Yep, at 8.
Okay.
Deion Branch, Troy Brown, or do everything. Troy Brown, dude used to play corner.
Oh yeah. No, they were on something. Yeah. And again, this is where, like, we're old school football heads. We were used to seeing players play random positions. Like, dude was having to play. I think it was another Patriots team. I was researching earlier. I forgot, but they had, again, one of their wide receivers have to play DB because they kept having. Ty Law went down. I think it was the 04 Patriots. Yeah, it was the 04 Patriots.
Yeah, Troy Brown.
So where you have a your starting wide receivers also playing DB. And you win your second Super Bowl in a row. So I don't feel like either one of us are losing with picking 03-04 Patriots. For me though, like, that's your team is 8. It's the 03 Patriots is 8. For me, my 8 is the 1972 Miami Dolphins. Okay. The only undefeated team in the history of the NFL. Why it is, and I'm sure people will be like, why would the only undefeated team only be on your, like, number 8 on your list?
Right.
And it's because of their, again, you play who's in front of you. So I'm not necessarily knocking the Dolphins. Like, they had a choice in it. You play who's in front of you.
Right.
But that undefeated season they had no issues. Their combined opponent's record was 367, so under 500.
Okay.
If you look at it, just the raw stats of it, it was that if you combined all of the records of the teams that 72 Dolphins team played, their opponents had a combined 70 wins, 122 losses, and 4 ties. Mind you, in the common era of football, the last like 30 years, you might have an NFL season where there's like 1 or 2 ties league-wide. This Dolphins team from 72 had 4 teams that had a draw on their schedule.
Remember, overtime's a lot different back then.
I get it, but it's like you played, like the Dolphins, they played who were in front of them, they beat who were in front of them, but who they were in front of was garbage. To where it's like, I cannot take away from the fact that they went undefeated. That's why they have to make my top 10. They're the only undefeated team in the history of American sports, you know, to win the championship and everything else. But at the same time, like, I mean, y'all played Little League.
Right, but I'll piggyback. I'll piggyback with you because actually I have them at number 7.
Okay, so I got them at 8. So we're on the same.
We're kind of in line. But
we're getting closer, people. We're working on getting closer.
I mean, the other thing you forgot to mention, though, also what gives credence to their run, remember, their starting quarterback, they lost their starting quarterback week 5. And then played the remainder of the season with backup QB. Which is still amazing to finish undefeated with a backup QB.
But it's because they had Larry Zonka. Which, again, a lot of the people that I hope that are tuning into this, they might be a bit too young to know this. Larry Zonka was a goddamn man. Hear me. Larry Zonka was a man. Like, that dude, literally, like, you can go back and look at NFL films and watch his tapes. He's playing with a busted nose and broken eye sockets and missing teeth and blood pouring down his face and still just shit canning everybody in front of him.
Larry Zonka's the original Stone Cold Steve
Oh
Austin.
my God, that dude was like terrifying. There was something wrong with him. Like, he was one of those people. Like, I don't know how many people have like tuned into The Punisher, you know, on that Netflix. But that's what it looked like. Was like, it didn't matter how much you beat this dude up, he was just gonna keep coming.
Right.
So again, like with Larry Zonka and that 72 Dolphins, I'm like, I gotta put them in my top 10 because if for nothing else, regardless of their strength of schedule, ain't nobody on the fucking planet wanted to see Larry Zonka like in his prime ever.
You know that you had the no-name defense. Yeah. They handled their business. They don't still to this day the only undefeated team in NFL history.
Only. Still holding on to it.
Still sipping that champagne.
I think it'll be one of them titles, especially as we watch how competitive the NFL's getting. I think after the 07 Patriots, which again, you know, we'll talk about, after the 07 Patriots were unable to complete the perfect season. I believe that was the closest team that will ever come to getting to that record of like a perfect season. Because again, with how the NFL is developing, with the talent that's coming in, even as we talked about in our power
will come
rank.
Close this season.
You said Tua?
I think two teams will
oh
come
my
close
God,
this
I thought
season.
you said Tua.
Yes,
and I was about to walk. Hey, I was about to walk off this podcast if I thought my co-host said that Tua Tagovailoa was going to lead the Dolphins to an undefeated season. I was about to be like,
20-0.
I was about to apologize to everybody that showed us support and be like, hey, clearly he is mentally unstable. If you said Tua was going to. So no, I said that you said two of.
Yeah.
Crucial. Two of, not two of.
Another thing.
Because we're talking about the 72 Dolphins, and then you say two of. I'm thinking two of because he also plays for the new Dolphins. And I'm like, wait, come on now.
Another thing I'll give the 72 Dolphins credit for is actually showing people what the family part of sports is.
Mm-hmm.
Because the surviving members of the team meet up every year once the final undefeated team loses a game. And they get together and drink champagne and celebrate their season.
That's dope.
Yeah, that's like
that's dope. I
like
didn't know that.
we talk about sports and these athletes and we treat them like warriors and gladiators. But you know, for those who have played sports on no matter what level, like just the bond you get with your teammates and be able to,
and
go
even
through,
with your rivals.
right.
So
So it's
people
like,
always think that, we both play, sports at varying levels, whether it's collegiate or whatever else.
right.
And it was like, we agreeing with you. Like, we know that. Like, to the media and everybody else, like, oh, these are rivals. They must hate each other. It's like, nah, like, it's actually respect.
Yeah. So I would actually not mind not seeing another team go undefeated just for that tradition.
Yeah.
Or if somebody does break it, let's hope they continue that tradition.
I don't think anybody will. Again, what I was saying with how I'm seeing the landscape of the NFL change and how good, teams just keep getting. I think that the idea, even this year,
especially
people are talking about Tampa Bay
extending the schedule.
Yeah, if people talking about Tampa Bay could go 17-0, I'm like, no, they won't. I think that they're the best team in football, which obviously we discussed in our power rankings. I think that they're the best team in football. But they go, no, the league is too good now. Even the bad teams. Like, even the Jacksonville Jaguars still have Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
Now, granted, Etienne's out for the season, which I told you when we did our power rankings. Y'all can see how prophetic I am. Just a few days ago, I was like, yo, I'm not sold on the Jags. Etienne's now out for the season. They gonna suck. That was like, they had Trevor Lawrence, and then they brought in his favorite target, and his favorite target is now out. To where it's like, looking at the NFL now, even with that, even with Trevor Lawrence not having Etienne, I can't look at any team and be like, oh, you're guaranteed to go 17-0.
Yeah.
Because Trevor Lawrence might get a game.
Yeah,
Zach
absolutely.
Wilson and the Jets might get a game.
Absolutely.
Kyler Murray and the Cardinals might get a game. Like, the San Francisco 49ers, Jimmy G or Trey Lance and whatever, like, they might get a game. And it's like, these teams that should be at the bottom of the barrel, they might get a game.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like, I don't think that the 72 record from the Dolphins is ever going to get touched. I think that the 2007 Patriots were the last team that had a legitimate shot at it. I think that the league is too good now for any team to go undefeated.
Right.
Seeing a team going 18-1 with winning the Super Bowl, I think is or now 19-1, completely reasonable. But completely undefeated, nah, I don't. I think that the 72 Dolphins they're good.
All right. Who you got at 7?
At 7, I'm hoping, I'm really hoping that we're somewhere in the same stratosphere on this, because I would be heartbroken if we weren't. Because my number 17 is a team you talk about all the time. I have the 1999 St. Louis Rams, the greatest show on turf. You got Kurt Warner, Marshall Faulk, Isaac Bruce, like, on and on. Like, this is one of the greatest offenses that the NFL has ever seen.
Absolutely.
And hands down, one of the most entertaining teams to watch in the history of the NFL, regardless of era or generation.
Yeah. The
greatest show on turf was exactly that. The St. Louis Rams in 1999 were exactly that. They were the best team to watch. They were absolutely entertaining and obnoxiously dominant.
Dude, here's what, like, angered me about that team. That team was like, when you played football as a kid, and you had the fastest guy in the neighborhood, and nobody wanted to guard him because he's the fastest guy in the neighborhood. The Rams were like that guy. Just the entire lineup is that guy.
Yeah, it was like top to bottom. It was like top to bottom.
Just speed.
You were just upset when you had to play the 1999 Rams.
Yeah.
Like, from 99 to 2001, like, that era, like, those 3 years of the Rams was just sick.
Yeah. Like, Marshall Faulk, he had a couple seasons where 1,000 yards receiving and rushing.
He came up in the 1999 season. He came up, I think he was 3rd in MVP voting. So even at that, it's like that he was at that level, and watching those 99 Rams, and again, they went on to win the Super Bowl because they were able to stop a dude a yard short.
Yeah, that's to this day, I'd probably say that's the best Super Bowl of all time.
Yeah, it was fantastic to watch. It was amazing. And then it came down to that. So, like, yeah, for me, number 7 is the 1999 St. Louis Rams.
Okay.
The greatest show on turf. I feel like there's nothing. We could spend the next half hour, 5 days, year talking about how amazing that team is. But I'll just, if y'all don't know, please just look it up. Just go on to YouTube and Google the greatest show on turf. And you will immediately, within 5 minutes, understand why this team was who they were. They were like the Showtime Lakers.
Pretty much.
It was like you have to watch the 1999
Yeah, it was
Rams.
just
You
up and
have
down.
to. Even if
their
you're not
defense
a fan.
is supremely underrated.
Yeah. And that too, they had a good defense.
Yeah.
Like they had a great team. But it was that offense was so just next level.
Yeah.
For years. And it was how they hit you. It wasn't just that. Because like if you look at it, like, yeah, there's obviously the Broncos in 2013 had the stats of like we had the most. It was how the Rams hit you. It was just like every game was overwhelming.
Yeah.
Like you felt like you were already losing before the first kickoff.
What do you think that offense would do with today's rules? Remember, they were the 5-yard rule wasn't in play during that season. That came a few years later. So you could actually still touch guys when they were doing that. Now that you can't really touch receivers.
That's where I'd have to argue, and this isn't to sound shitty, but I have to argue against Kurt Warner in that in the current system right now, like the way that the rules are, as you were saying, the wide receiving core from the 1999 Rams is going to eat. But I don't know if Kurt Warner was capable of getting to him because I feel like he was so perfect exactly for what he was. Like he was, we talked about like adding pieces, whether it's like the NBA, NFL, whatever else. Like you need to add a piece. Yeah. Because I have comments on the fact that I think that Russell Westbrook was a horrible addition to the Lakers. We'll talk about that when we get into the NBA season, but it's like that. It's like, oh, just because he's a big name guy doesn't mean that he's a good fit.
Right.
Kurt Warner was a literal perfect goddamn fit for that scheme. Any changes, any deviations, and I don't believe that they're the greatest show on turf. I think that he had to be exactly who he was, exactly when they needed him to be. And it's because like his skill set, as was even shown when he went to Arizona, was not capable of more responsibility than what he had in St. Louis.
We also didn't have Torrey Holton, Isaac Bruce, and Marshall.
He had Larry Fitzgerald in his prime. He had Larry Fitzgerald in his prime.
But even to be fair, he still took them to the Super Bowl.
Larry Fitzgerald put up almost 200 yards receiving in that Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like,
so I think if you put that offense in today's NFL, they'd average 40 points a game easy.
The 99 Rams?
Yes.
I think that you're
offensively.
I think that you're wrong. I think that they would average 45. Like I
didn't mean literally 40 points.
I'm saying what I'm saying is I'm like they averaging 7 touchdowns a game. So I'm like 45 to 49 in the current NFL. The 99 Rams are averaging like 49 points a game. Like they're running teams out of the building.
You got those guys running around.
It wouldn't even matter
can't touch them.
It wouldn't matter what their defense is. Yeah, the current like the 99 Rams. That's why they're 7th on my list. So I'm curious to see who you have at number 7.
Number 7.
Because if it's not the greatest show on turf, I hope that they're higher up.
We're on 6. 6.
6 is the greatest show on turf.
No.
Who you got on 7? Who you got on 6?
Number 6. The 1976 Oakland Raiders.
Get out of here. I want to shut down this recording right now.
1976 Oakland Raiders.
I cannot believe that you put a Raiders team in your top 10.
Absolutely. Come on. This they were the bad boys Pistons of the NFL.
You talking about Howie Long?
No. This is way before Howie Long.
Oh, okay.
This is John Madden. John Madden was the coach. They went 13-1. They have one of the most. Every football fan knows this replay. Willie Brown getting the interception, running up the sideline with the helmet shit. That's the 76 Raiders, man. That's your number 7.
Number 6. Number 6
16,
is the 70.
Yeah, they were gonna win the game, and then after the game, they were gonna win the fight.
I mean, the Raiders were built different, especially back then. I'm pretty sure it was the LA Raiders, not Oakland yet.
No, it was Oakland
in the 70s.
Yeah.
Okay. Either I don't give a shit because fuck the Raiders. I'm a Broncos fan. I don't care about anything that the Raiders have ever done in the history of their life. Like
this team is one of the greatest of all time, man.
I mean, you got them at 6. My number 6 team actually piggybacks off of what you had as one of your 10A, 10B teams. My number 6 is the 1985 Bears.
Okay,
the
that's
monsters of
fair.
the Midway with, again, as we talked about, the Steel Curtain, Mean Joe Green, Jack Lambert, Terry Bradshaw, Lynn Swan, Stallworth, Miller Blunt. Like, that was a squad. The 1978, like, or the 1985. Oh man, I went all the way off. I messed that all up. I'm sorry. I missed. I was talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers, which I have on my number 4. That's a spoiler. Whatever. But the 1985 Bears are my number 6. Again, Mike Ditka, Walter Payton, Fridge Perry. Their playoff run, whereas I told you it was like 95-13 or something stupid. Like, that's my number 6 team. The Beasts of the Midway, the Monsters of the Midway.
Super Bowl Shovel.
They have to be number 6 for me. Number 5. Who you have at number 5? Since your number 6 is the Raiders, and I got them at the Bears. Who's your number 5?
2002 Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
With Rondé Barber.
Yes, Rondé Barber, Derek Brooks, Warren Sapp, and John Lynch.
John Gruden is the first year head coach.
Yeah.
That is an amazing surprise. I would have never, ever guessed that you would have the 2002 Buccaneers. Yeah. I know they also had Warren Sapp, too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a squad, but
I
don't know if that's a top 10 squad for me.
I mean, that they scored 3 defensive touchdowns in the Super Bowl. If you take away their offense completely, the score of the Super Bowl is 21-21. That's stupid.
Yeah.
Offensively, you had Keyshawn Johnson, Keenan McCardell.
Mm-hmm.
You had the Twins, Warwick Dunn, Mike Allstott. Come on, son.
No, that's a B squad. Yeah. I hadn't thought about the 2002
only thing
Bucks.
And that's been a fun fact. I was actually at that Super Bowl on the field, so I got to see it from the sidelines. Dude, watching that defense in person, speed. It's the fastest defense I've ever seen, man for man. Like, they're just to the ball, like.
And that's your number 5. Or is that number 6?
Yeah, it's number 5.
Number 5.
Number 5. The only dislike about that team, I wish they would have kept Tony Dungy.
Oh yeah.
To me, Gruden, he'll get the credit, but it was really Tony Dungy's squad.
Yeah. So that's your number 5.
Number 5.
My number 5 is going to be a big difference. My number 5 is the only team I have on my list that cracks the top 10 without having won a Super Bowl. Yes, people. I have a team in my top 10 greatest of all time that did not win the Super Bowl. My number 5 is the 2007 New England Patriots. The team that finished their season at 18-1.
Defeated.
They didn't finish defeated.
They finished defeated.
No, finishing defeated is what the Browns and Lions have done when you go 0-16. That's finishing defeated.
Did they lose their last game?
That's finishing defeated.
They were defeated.
No, if you literally lose more games than you win, that's finishing defeated. No, if you go 18-1, you weren't defeated.
They finished defeated.
So you can say that. That's fine.
If the teams on this list threw a party, they wouldn't be invited.
If it wasn't for David Tyree if it wasn't for David Tyree of the New York Giants catching the most improbable catch in the history of life, where he pinned a ball between 2 defenders to his helmet and somehow didn't let the tip of it, even though it was literally 1 inch from the ground, which would have negated the catch. Mm-hmm. All of that luck factor, if you take that out, the Patriots win 19-0. They're the greatest team in the history of football.
But he did it.
So it was like, a fluke for me, and that's why I have the Patriots, the 2007 Patriots on my number 5 team, is that it was like a fluke play is the only reason that the Patriots the 2007 Patriots aren't the undeniable number 1 all-time team of all time. Like, but I know that was redundant, but
how many fluke plays helped them get there?
None. Because again, the 2007 Patriots, the 18-0 up until the Super Bowl Patriots, were winning their games by an average of 20 points per game, the highest margin of victory to this day in the NFL history. Like they were winning by 20 plus points per game during a perfect season, which means no, it wasn't fluke plays.
No,
they were literally beating the shit out of everyone.
As a franchise, like
how
many fluke plays help all of these teams?
None. If you're looking at a team, the 2007 Patriots, who again played 16 games like everybody else did, and their average margin of victory was 3 touchdowns. They are not winning by fluke plays. They are beating people's ass. They were destroying the Tom Brady set the record at the time for 50 plus touchdown passes in the season. Randy Moss had a career year. Randy Moss, a Hall of Famer, had a career year with the Patriots, his only season with the Patriots. Like, dude, they were beasts. Again, winning by 20 plus points every game, undefeated. Yeah, they lost on a fluke to the Giants. They lost on a fluke catch. And that's all it was. So yeah, I have the 2007 Patriots as my number 5 team because I don't care that they didn't win the Super Bowl. That was one of the best teams that's ever been constructed in NFL history.
But they won 4 games that year by 3 or less points. So you can't say like they didn't destroy everybody. So
how many games out of 20?
I mean, but still, like you said, like how many plays in those games? If then they wouldn't like. It happened, so you can't crap on Tyree. He made a great catch.
No, he did. I'm not saying that he didn't make a great catch. It was a shitty throw. It was a bad throw
to kick off the Patriots dynasty.
It was a fantastic catch. It was a fantastic catch. The tuck rule. I know the tuck rule. I understand the tuck rule. I'm not saying it like that. I'm just saying that for me, my number 5 team is the 2007 Patriots. I don't care they didn't win the Super Bowl. That was one of the greatest teams that's ever been put on a football field. Who's your number 5?
Number 5.
Who's better for you than the 07 Patriots?
Number 4. Actually, I think this team would smack those Patriots. But at number 4, I actually have the 2013 Seahawks.
Oh, so my honorable mention is all the way into your top 5.
Yes.
So you have the 2000 Ravens,
third best
and the 1985 Chicago Bears tied for 10th, but you have the 2013 Seahawks. So that has an honorable mention is in your top 5?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Absolutely.
Why? I'm so curious as to why.
The third best defense of all time. Third best defensive team of all time.
Mm-hmm.
The greatest secondary of all time, though. Which is important because they played in the era with all of these rule changes. For them to be able to do what they did, we can't touch you. Like, the skill it takes to literally hold receivers down like that. You put them in an era where they could actually put hands on people. Put Cam Chancellor in 85 where he could sling receivers across the field.
Yeah.
They would literally be the best defense ever. Then add on that, they're more balanced on offense. They're better quarterback. Russell Wilson, I'll take Russell Wilson over Trent Dilfer. I'll take Russell Wilson over Jim McMahon. I wouldn't take beast mode over sweetness. Maybe he's even
high.
Maybe even with Jamal Lewis though. You make an argument.
Don't you dare on this podcast make an argument for Marshawn Lynch over Walter Payton.
Yeah, the receiving corps, they were just more balanced team.
I'd quit.
They're just a more balanced team than those teams, and just looking at what they did with the restrictions they had to deal with defensively, the team's savage. I mean, look at what they did easily top 3 at worst offense of all time.
Yeah, the Denver Broncos.
8 points.
Yeah.
That is insane.
For a team that was averaging
38.
For a team that was averaging 38 points a game, that you held them to 8 in the Super Bowl.
Insane.
Yeah.
Like that's...
I don't know if I'd have them. I obviously, I don't know. I can't say I don't know if I don't have them in my top 10. I definitely don't have them as number 4. My number 4, it's not going to take a long time. It's no, because you already touched on it. Was early on your list. It was the Steel Curtain. You picked that in 1975.
Yeah, 78.
I went with the 78 Steelers because I liked that team more. Because again, that's when Mel Blount created the 5 yard contact rule because of what he was doing. I liked the 78 Steel Curtain more than the 75, but again,
That's fair.
we're as we talked about, it's
apples
like,
and oranges.
it was an era, it was a decade of dominance by the Steelers, just like picking between the Patriots. Right. It's like, you want to pick 03, 04, 07.
Like they literally like, could have won 6 straight Super Bowls.
Yeah, it was the same thing with the Patriots. Like, you want to pick 01, 02, 03, 04. The Steelers is like, you want to pick 75, 76, 77, 78. Like, which one you just have to, it's at that point, dealer's choice, as we talk about. For me, I liked the 78 Steelers more than the 75. But again, both were just next level. So I have them at number 4. And now we're getting into it, man. Now we're getting into it. Now this is the meat of it.
Top
this
threes.
is where
Top
like
the meat.
Yeah, this is where like the real conversation happens, man. This is where people gonna tune in and have their opinions and their comments, and we have our opinions and our comments, and this is where it gets real. Is
all right.
Who's in your top 3? I gotta hear yours first.
For me, number 3, and not gonna spend a lot of time.
Yeah,
because they're lower on your list, but they're higher on mine. Greatest show on turf.
Oh, so you have.
They are.
See, that makes me feel better, people. That makes me feel better because I was questioning my co-host for a while during this particular podcast, but now that he has the greatest show on turf.
Yeah, greatest show on earth, and you can even see my notes. Greatest show on turf.
Greatest show on turf. Yeah, you ain't gonna hear no argument from me. I mean, we already went over it. Like I had them at 7. So I'm happy that you had them at 3. But you ain't gonna hear no argument from me again. Like, we already went through it. That team was something else.
Yeah, the only thing I can and played in the greatest Super Bowl of all time to me. I still remember watching that game, watching the play Steve McNair made where he shrugged off 2 defenders, got the pass off to get him in range. Like that was and
Dyson coming up literally like him fighting. Like I feel like I became a fan of his just because of how hard he fought to try to get that yard.
And
he knew exactly where he needed to be and was like trying.
Yeah.
Like I love that. But yeah, that was a fantastic Super Bowl. My number 3.
No.
I love all of y'all that have already tuned in and showed support. I appreciate y'all for listening into these podcasts or tuning into the YouTube or however you're getting this content. I say this with a straight face. I know I'm smiling right now. You can't see it if you just listen to the podcast. If you tune in on YouTube, you can see I'm smiling, but I'm saying with a straight face. My number 3 team of all time. And yes, I'm saying this. It's the 1998 Denver Broncos. Hear me? Because NFL.com isn't off with me on this. Like, not far off. When I was doing the research going into this and trying to cross-reference who I naturally picked for my top 10, I wanted to also see other people's opinions. And NFL.com actually ranks the 98 Broncos as their number 5 team of all time. So I have them a little bit higher. Maybe you could say bias at 3. But I'm not far off from historians. Go ahead. Oh, just because So let me make my case. The Broncos of 1998 were coming. They ended up being back-to-back champions the first time since the Cowboys. It was a bit more common, but they were the only back-to-back champions since the Patriots did it. And again, only the Patriots have done it since. So the last 2 teams to ever go back-to-back was the New England Patriots and the Denver Broncos. Mm-hmm. In that 98 season, the Broncos went 14-2. They fielded, which is still a historical number. Like, historically, they had 10 Pro Bowlers. No other team in NFL history has had 10 Pro Bowlers on one roster in a single season. We sent 10 players to the Pro Bowl in the 98 season, along with going 14-2, along with the fact that Terrell Davis, a now Hall of Famer, was MVP that year and rushed for 2,008 yards. Mind you, this is the big part. He rushed for 2,000 yards. He's only the 3rd running back in NFL history to do it, to get over 2,000 yards. At the time. I think actually at the time, yeah, whatever.
It was like 3 more have done it since.
Yeah, including Derrick Henry and
CJ
Adrian Peterson. But yeah, so either way, it's still a short list. He rushed for 2,000 yards, and with the Steph Curry effect is what I'm calling it. Is the Steph Curry effect is that during that 98 season, the Denver Broncos were so obnoxiously dominant that Terrell Davis, the MVP of the league in 1998, the MVP, sat out the equivalent of 2 whole games in the fourth quarter. Like if you add it up, because he didn't play the fourth quarter in numerous games, where if you added it up, he missed 2 whole games and still had 2,000 yards rushing and still had
Shanahan is notorious for
and
that.
still had 21 touchdown rushes. Like was MVP and didn't play 2 whole games.
Yeah, Shanahan's notorious for that.
Not to mention that the Broncos in that playoff run dominated everybody that they played. They outscored their opponents in their playoff games 95-32, including, again, a one-sided ass whooping of the Falcons. The Falcons team, who went 14-2 that season, was the 4th best team on offense, 4th best team on defense.
Yeah, shouldn't have been in the Super Bowl.
Was the Atlanta Falcons 14-2 that the Denver Broncos manhandled. Yeah, the score was 34-19, which is still lopsided, but it was like 34-10 for most of the game. Like the game was over at halftime.
Yeah, they shouldn't have been there.
To where it was like the 1998 Broncos, not only was that how they solidified their back-to-back championships with John Elway and Terrell Davis, Shannon Sharp, Ed McCaffrey, John Lynn, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That team was obnoxiously dominant. And I'm not saying that as a Broncos fan. I'm saying that if you just look at the historical numbers, that team, the 1998 Denver Broncos, were obnoxious. Again, 14-2, led the league in almost every major statistical category, MVP, Super Bowl MVP, dominated the playoffs, etc.
I would have more belief in that team. Belief is not the right word, but I'm going to use it. But or I don't say respect either, because that's not really it. But
appreciation.
There we go. I'd have more appreciation for that team had they played the Vikings. This is what I said. The Atlanta Falcons shouldn't have been there. Remember, the Vikings went 15-1. They were the best team in the league. And that was Randall Cunningham, Randy Moss, Chris Carter, still had Robert Smith in the backfield, John Rent. Like, they were loaded. And their field goal kicker, who hadn't missed a field goal all year, missed the game-winning field goal.
But see, that's where we get
we're talking about the things that
that's when we were talking about the 72 Dolphins. Is like you play who's in front of you. Like we can talk literally every single season,
absolutely,
in every sport about like we were just talking about Giannis from the NBA and the Bucks winning, and it was like, oh, he got, you can make arguments that the reason he got a championship is because Kevin Durant's shoe size is 1 too big. Or the fact that the Phoenix Suns got lucky as being the ones because the Lakers and the Clippers and all these other teams were hurt. Like, you can always put those into it. But going with the 72 Dolphins, why I put them on my list, and like, you play who's in front of you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, that's not, you can't, for me, you can't take away from a team because of who they didn't play. Like, oh, they won a Super Bowl because they didn't play the Vikings.
I'd take away from them, because even if they played the Vikings win, they still wouldn't be on my list.
But where I'm looking at it is like, even if they did play the Vikings and
I'd have more appreciation for the team.
But I'm like, why didn't they play the Vikings? Because that's not a question for the Broncos. That's not a question for anybody on this list. It's not, why didn't the Broncos play the Vikings instead of the Falcons? The question should be the Vikings, like, why weren't you in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, their field goal.
Because I don't care that you're 15. I don't care that you're 15-1. I don't care that your kicker missed it. If you're 15-1, if you're that good of a team as the Vikings, why the fuck is it coming down to just your kicker? Because the Broncos, as I just went through, they got to the Super Bowl on a 95-32 record as far as like outscoring their opponents. They weren't leaving shit up to Jason Elam. Mind you, Jason Elam, who had the record that year, he set it that year of a 63-yard field goal. He set the record that year. And we weren't relying on him to win us games, so why were the Vikings? Okay. So that's where I'm like, no, I don't care who they could have played. Oh, the Vikings are 15-1 and their kicker missed it. Then their kicker shouldn't have missed.
Bronco man, chill out. I'm speaking of my appreciation, not yours.
Facts. My bad. Facts. All right, because you ain't gonna drag my team like that. You ain't gonna talk about them.
I can drag them all. I can drag them all day long.
So who's your number 3? Because
I'm gonna catch a migraine in the middle of the Super Bowl.
I got my number 3 is the 1998 2-time back-to-back, Super Bowl champion.
Well, it can't be 2-time because it's a singular season.
Back-to-back champion. So who's your number 3?
2.
Who's your number 3?
Great Show on Turf.
Oh, okay. My bad. I
Need you
missed
to
it.
keep
I missed it. My bad. I missed it.
So number 2, I have the 1993 Dallas Cowboys.
Wow.
How about them Cowboys? Yes,
I thought you were
loaded.
going to, you mean, okay, with Jimmy Johnson and, okay.
Yeah, loaded. The triplets.
Yeah,
Smith,
yeah.
Troy, and Michael Irvin. But that defense was sickening. Charles Haley, Ken Norton Jr. They just ran through the league. They missed. They finally got through San Fran. Before what San Fran dominated. Finally beat the 49ers in the playoffs, and then got to the Super Bowl and almost set the record for biggest blowout in Super Bowl history, except for Leon Lett. Celebrated a little bit too early. Got ran up on by Don Beebe, and everybody knows that. But that team was dominant. Dominant offensive line. I think the average weighted offensive line was almost close to 400 pounds. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
This is why Emmitt Smith wasn't getting touched.
So I really wanted to put that same Cowboys team in my top 10. I couldn't stomach it. I couldn't.
They were great, man.
I couldn't get myself around to it.
Michael Irvin, shout out to you.
Yeah, I couldn't get myself around to it. So actually, that's your number 2 team.
Number 2.
Was it 92, 93 Cowboys?
Yep.
All right.
No, 93.
The 93.
93 season, 194 Super Bowl.
Okay. I can't put the Cowboys on there, man. I want to. I know that they have, 5 Super Bowl rings, and they had a hell of a run in the 90s, and even during the 70s, they had a couple Super Bowls in the 70s. I just can't. I can't do it. I can't do it.
The teams were great.
Nah, fuck the Cowboys.
Shout out to Jimmy Johnson.
My number 2 is obviously not the Cowboys. My number 2 is actually a team that you had ranked at number 10A or 10B. My number 2 team of all time is that 2000 Baltimore Ravens team. Because again, it's arguably the best defense in history. Like they
beat the 98 Broncos?
You say what? You threw me all the way off.
They beat the 98 Broncos in a game?
Would the 2000 Ravens beat the 98 Broncos? Oh, fuck yeah. Excuse my language for people listening. Like, absolutely. Because that defense, that Ravens defense from 2000 was terrifying. In my opinion, it is the hands down, not even a question, the greatest defense in the history of the NFL is the 2000 Ravens. They carried a mediocre, as we've talked about, as you said, Trent Dilfer. They carried a mediocre at best being friendly offense to a Super Bowl win, to a 12-4 season.
Yeah.
And again, they dominated even in a way that the 98 Broncos didn't, because I was just talking about how I had the Broncos as number 3, because I'm also thinking about their playoff record. Like, what did they do in the playoffs? So the 98 Broncos had, at the time, which was again surpassed 2 years later by the team I'm about to talk about, the greatest postseason record of that they outscored their opponents 95 to 32 throughout their playoff run. Mm-hmm. The Ravens apparently said, "Hold my drink," and they went 95 to 23. They allowed 9 less points over the same court. Actually, and they had an extra game. Yeah. That's the crazy part, was that the Broncos team that I'm talking about, the 98 Broncos, only played 3 games. This Ravens team got in as a wild card, so they had to play 4 games.
Tennessee Titans won the division.
Yeah, still put up 95 points. Like the Broncos did 98. Put up 95 points. But with an extra game, somehow managed to keep teams to 9 less points. How do you get 9 less points with an extra game? Like, was the teams getting negative? That's how good the Ravens were in 2000. That's like 95 to 23. Yeah. That's a 72-point gap. On top of the fact that 2000 Ravens team during the regular season had 4 shutouts. On top of the fact that during the regular season, that Ravens team held teams to 10.3 points per game. And if you expand it to the 4 games they played in the playoffs to their 20-game season, they were holding teams to 9, what was it? Let me make sure I get this perfectly right. 9.4 points per game. 9.4 points per game?
Yeah.
That's not even a field goal and a touchdown. No. Like, dude, that the 2000 Ravens with Ray Lewis, with everybody on that team, hands down for me, is the number 2 team of all time, strictly because that is the greatest defense that's ever been on the field.
Let's put some perspective on where that team came from. This is what people don't know. It's like during that period, and I'll say just during that period, the AFC Central, they were still calling it the Central at the time, which is currently the AFC North. Sent the Baltimore Ravens, wild card team, who went on to win the Super Bowl, best defense. We were talking about the greatest show on turf, beat Tennessee, who was also a wild card team from the AFC Central, 13-3. They were a 13-3 wild card team because the Jacksonville Jaguars went 14-2 to win the division. Who were their 2 losses to? The Tennessee Titans. Literally, they were undefeated against the rest of the NFL, only lost to the Titans. Lost 3 games. Like, so just in that division, you had 3 teams that were just absolute monsters. So it's like you had to be a monster defensively to get out of the division. Once you got out of the division, playoffs is easy.
So yeah, I mean, but again, when I just look at them on paper, I'm like, I mean, even the Super Bowl, they routed the New York Giants, which that particular season, the Giants were the number 1 offense in the NFL, and they beat them 34-7, which sounds familiar to what the Seahawks did to the Broncos in 2013. When the number 1 defense comes up against the number 1 offense in the Super Bowl, that shit never bodes well for the offense. And the Ravens, they just ramrocked them, dude. 34-7. That's not a game. That's not a game. It's over. That's not a game. You know what I'm saying? So like the 2000 Ravens are my number 2 team.
Okay.
And now gotta do the cornball ass drum roll, because now we're about to unveil the number 1 pick. Who is your number 1 greatest NFL team of all time for Mr. Bobby G? Who is your number 1 team? It's what everybody's been waiting for. It's what everybody's, for the hour plus we've been into it. Everybody wants to know, who is your number 1 team?
You're not gonna like it.
I'm willing to guarantee that.
Number 1, I have the 1989 San Francisco 49ers.
Hey, people. We have motherfucking agreement. I also have the 1989 San Francisco 49ers as my number 1 team. Hey, this is why we sports people. This is why we doing this podcast, because even though we can debate the rest of it, when it comes to we know who the best is.
That team was
unreal.
This is why also kind of a reason why the 85. Remember, a few years ago or prior, they put the then defending 85 Bears. They knocked them out of the playoffs. So they learned how to win. Tooled up that team. You had Montana Rice, John Taylor, Roger Craig,
Ronnie Lott.
Yeah,
like
Rathbun.
Number 1 offense, number 1 defense.
Yeah.
Put a 55 against my Broncos in the Super Bowl. And the Broncos, who that year were not a slouch. The Broncos that year in 1989 destroyed the AFC and got destroyed in the Super Bowl. It was watching 2 different teams play. It was like, oh, okay, we're watching a college team play, and we were watching the NFL team play against a high school team. And it wasn't that I'm shitting on my own team. It was just like, that's agreeing with you. How next level the 1989. Yeah, I'm so happy people listening in. One of the main reasons that we want to do this podcast is because me and him, we have a wealth of sports knowledge, but we disagree often. So that we could have the same number 1 on the list. You have no idea. That's like the first time in the history of our friendship we probably had the same number 1. And it's got to be the 1989 San Francisco 49ers, because there's nobody else. There's no other team in the history of the NFL that is better.
Perfectly balanced offense,
as you were saying, top to bottom.
They could run you to death because Roger Craig was a bruiser. They could throw for 350 on you.
Bruh.
They could hold
I know
you
know this. I know you know this, but for people that are like at home that might not know this, the 1989 San Francisco 49ers, do you know who their backup quarterback was? The backup quarterback on the 1989 San Francisco 49ers was future Hall of Famer Steve Young. People, that was how loaded this fucking team was, that the backup went on to be a Hall of Famer.
And you talk about
the backup.
You talk
Was a
about
Hall of
making
Famer.
runs in the playoffs. Their combined score was 126-26.
Dude, it was insane. Like there's no team that's close right now to the 1989 49ers.
They beat the Vikings 41-13, beat the Rams 30-3, and of course the Broncos 55-10 in the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Like it wasn't even fair. Like the 1989 San Francisco 49ers is the greatest team in the history of football. Because again, as you said, top to bottom, it was like it didn't matter who you were.
Yeah.
They were beating you. They had a better offense, they had a better defense, they had a better coach, they had a better special teams, it was just top to bottom.
Yeah.
Like the fact that they didn't go undefeated is the only thing shocking to me about that team because of how loaded they were.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is
14-2,
they were at the second of a back-to-back in which
and they were back-to-back champs.
Yeah, because Bill Walsh.
And they were back-to-back champs. And they were back-to-back champs.
Yeah, because Bill Walsh was still to this day, I have no clue why, unceremoniously let go by the Niners.
Mm-hmm.
So his last game was winning the Super Bowl the previous year. Enter George Seifert. This is his first year. All that pressure, you're being handed a Super Bowl team. Don't mess it up.
Right.
And he didn't. Like, to his credit, he didn't. They go on, went back-to-back. And then, unfortunately, management strikes again because a couple years later, they shipped Joe Montana out of town to make room for Steve Young. But, what if it worked out and they could have reaped it? It came close to 3 in a row. They lost the NFC Championship game 15-13 the next season. Still, the Giants' only team ever to win a championship game on nothing but field goals. It was the weirdest game I ever saw in my life. Watching this game, and I'm like, because I actually wanted them to go 3 in a row. Knowing what was going on with the Montana and Young thing. I'm like, let the dude go out with a ring. And the Giants pulled out the tub with 5 field goals.
Well, the Giants, the New York Giants are like that. They're dream killers. Like, I mean, they ended Tom Brady's 19-0 bid.
Yeah.
They ended the potential for the first ever, only ever 3-peat champion in the NFL. Like the Giants are just killers. Like they're not a good team. They just screw up everybody else's plans. Maybe they should have made it into our top 10. Like maybe just the
Giants as a franchise.
That's my final addition to the end of this episode. Is I'm adding a third team to my honorable mention. That's just the Giants franchise for being so consistently the team that fucks up other teams' historic seasons. They're never good. They're never the team that should win. Like again, when they knocked off the 18-0 Patriots, they were 9-7. They started the season like 1-5 or something stupid, 1-4. Like they were horrible.
Yeah.
And then it was just out of. So yeah,
I'll give a couple honorable mentions. You could honorable mention the '86 Giants, LT and the boys, and unfortunately at the expense of your Broncos again.
Yeah,
got LT a ring, got Bill Belichick his first.
We've been on the bad side of some bad Super Bowls, but at least we still don't have the record for the most Super Bowl losses. That's still the Bills, especially consecutive. But I mean, we're getting close, man.
Honorable mention the Redskins, just call them Washington because they weren't the football team at the time.
Are we 3-3 right now?
The Broncos
in the Super Bowl 3-4, 3-3, something like that. But it's not even that. It's like all of our losses are horrendous.
That's 3-4.
Yeah, so it's not even that like the Broncos' losses in the Super Bowl because like Patriots have multiple losses in the Super Bowl, but it's that all of ours are bad. It's like we have 3 wins. We either win dominantly or lose submissively. There's no in between. We're either completely like, this is a runaway, the Broncos are in the Super Bowl. It's like, dude, how did they get here? Why are we fielding this? It looks like you're pistol whipping a blind kid. This is just not fair. So I'm glad. I'm honestly so glad that we could thoroughly agree on one pick for our top 10s and that it was the most important one. That we agreed on the number 1 pick. It wasn't like some random one. It was the number 1 pick. We both are in consensus that it was the 1989 San Francisco 49ers. For those that don't know, please go back and look at the film. Go look back at the stats. That team was stacked.
Yeah.
For everybody tuning in, if you feel like we did not give a team that you believe was one of the top 10 teams of all time enough credit or any recognition at all, please let us know in the comments. Let us know what your top 10 team is. Let's see. We're happy to debate it. We're happy to make another episode. We can, talk about the the teams that are listed in the comments from people that are viewing in and letting us know what they think their teams are. Let us know if you agree with our picks for our top 10, especially for our number one pick, since we were in consensus that it was the 89 Niners. Let us know if you agree, if you disagree.
We're on the West Coast, so I think a lot of people agree.
I hope so. Yeah, we might have a little bit of a bias for that, especially, our proximity to the Bay Area. But let us know. Again, if you guys like this content, if you like the previous episode, you like this episode and the other ones coming up, please hit that like, subscribe button. Let us know in the comments if you agree with our list, if you disagree with it, where you think certain teams should be placed. If your team didn't make the cut, let us know why. You can contact us again through the comments, through the website, whatever else. Let us know. We are always open to hearing ideas. We want to bring the best content that we can to you. We want to bring the content that you want to hear. So let us know where your list ranks in comparison to ours. As far as our next episode, which will be coming out on Tuesday, given that everybody's kind of getting into fantasy football, obviously this is when a lot of people are doing their drafts and their workplaces and everything else. We might do an episode talking about fantasy football, who we want to draft, who we want y'all to avoid drafting, what defenses we think you should pick as far as your stock, who should go number one, who should go where. We'll have a whole show for that for you.
Number one is Patrick Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes got to be number one. According to my co-host, I might have a different opinion. So yeah, tune in on Tuesday. We'll let you guys know who our fantasy picks are. Getting into that season, I know obviously everybody's in the office work and you're getting these pools going, and you want to make sure that you have the best possible chance to get that prize, whatever it is at your job. So tune in on Tuesday. We'll give you our picks for our fantasy teams, how we think that we can set you up the best way that we can to win your office pool in your fantasy. So if you guys like the content, please hit the like, subscribe buttons. Please share the content. We, again, cannot thank y'all enough for the support we've already gotten so far. We hope that it keeps going, and we hope that you guys continue to like our content. Let us know your comments, your thoughts. We love y'all. We do this for you. I'll leave it to him. Got any final comments before we wrap this one up?
Nope. Smash the like, subscribe. Other than that,
see you next time. And again, you guys can find us on Spotify, Apple, Google Pods, YouTube, anywhere that you find your podcast. You can find us. Thank you again from the bottom of our hearts. We're going to do this every Tuesday and Friday, dropping at 11 a.m. Thank y'all for tuning in. We absolutely love you, and thank you again. We hope that y'all liked our list, and we look forward to seeing how you guys compare your own list to ours. My name is Shaka. This is my guy, Bobby G. Thank you for tuning in to the now second episode of the Next Man Up Sports Podcast. Love y'all. See y'all on Tuesday. Thank you again.
Peace.